Profiles with Jason Patterson. In these moments, we reflect upon the remarkable life and incredible basketball journey of Hall of Famer Dave Odom. Coach, thanks for taking the time to welcome us into your home and in your office and in your space here in Winston-Salem.
My pleasure, my pleasure. Beautiful day outside, but a good chance to talk basketball and the history of the sport and my part of it. Glad to have you here.
Folks think of you, they immediately think of those trademark fingers pressed down on the floor, on the hardwood, coaching those basketball teams from so many places all around the Carolinas and beyond. When you look back on your career, what's the first thing, though, that comes to your mind?
Wow. First thing that comes to my mind would be the players. It's just so different than it is today. Back in the few years ago when I was coaching, players came in August. They stayed for the whole year, May, June, started the season over again. There was never any doubt about them here for, first of all, a degree, second of all, to experience basketball, to get as good as they could possibly be, and win a championship. You know, today, players come in maybe August, and they play the season, and they leave, jeepers, 1st of March, and it's just so different now. They leave so quickly that fans don't really get to know them, and it's a different thing. So I revel in the fact that when I was a young coach and I was coming up through the ranks, I had a chance to really get to know the players. I had a chance to see them develop. I had a chance to, tie some bonds with them. And what's happened now is that in these years that have separated me from my actual coaching, I really get pleasure out of getting phone calls from former players, and the fans, they still in part recognize me and see me in airports and restaurants, and it's a really fun thing.
Let's talk your journey. Long before you were making coaching headlines, pretty outstanding player here in the state of North Carolina. You take your talents to Guilford College, where you're a two-sport standout, not only on the basketball floor, but also as the quarterback of the football team after your time at Goldsboro. Walk us through those days when you were experiencing it as a player, and maybe give us a sense of how basketball ended up being the path for you.
Well, it really, I think, is an interesting story. I came out of Goldsboro, a town in eastern North Carolina, much like the one next to it, Wilson or Rocky Mount. Those towns, they're a lot of sand down there and cockleburs, and the scenery is not like it is in Winston-Salem or the mountains. It's a wonderful area because people take care of people. They're friends down there. It's a great area. I really liked growing up in Goldsboro. The families, the fans supported the heck out of us. We had mediocre football teams. We had good basketball teams. We had great baseball teams. I had an opportunity at the end of my last year to go to Guilford College. I went there to play football to start with, and played that first year. Didn't play a lot my first year, being young and whatnot. Intramural basketball started in January, and I was on the basketball team for center section, which is the name of the dorm I was in. And I started playing, and things went well, and we won games. And one night I looked up, and we just named a new basketball coach, and his name was Jerry Steele, and he actually was a Wake Forest graduate, but he also got his master's at North Carolina. Season ended. We won the championship, our team did. And he was standing there, and he gave me one of those, come up here. And so I went upstairs, and he said, I'm Jerry Steele, new basketball coach. I said, I know, Coach. I said, I'm Dave Odom. He said, I know, I know David. He said, you ever thought about playing basketball here? I said, well, I don't know. I'm on football scholarship. I don't know if they'd let me or not. He said, well, leave it to me. Let me talk to him. Coach Appenzeller, who was the football coach, said, have at it. So I played football and I played basketball. Played basketball 4 years. I played football. As it turned out, just 3. My first opening to be a head coach came in basketball. And that's the reason I went that direction. It could have easily been football. I loved football. I knew it. I still know it. Coincidentally, baseball was my favorite sport in terms of playing it. I love baseball. I loved to get out there and play. I was a left-handed hitter. And I often kid my people about it. I said, if it hadn't been for left-handed pitchers, I would have gone in the major leagues. I would. I'd have gone in the major leagues. I keep that in my mind. I don't know that that's true, but I was a pretty good hitter.
Basketball fans would say, thank God for left-handed pitchers.
Yeah.
The way it ended up.
Probably good for me as well, but that was true.
When it has come into your mind, Coach, how different life could have been, had it been baseball, had it been football, what are those thoughts like?
I never questioned what happened. I didn't. I mean, basketball was good for me and good to me. Would it have been different? Sure it would have. It would have taken me down a different road, and no doubt about that, but I'm happy with what happened. I actually had 11 years in high school. I coached 3 sports every year, and I get a kick out of listening to all these coaches now that say they coach this many games. You know, I was coaching 10 football games a year, 25 basketball games, and 25 baseball games. I mean, I was coaching a bunch of games back in the, if you add all of those up, I could whip all these times. Say that when I coached 1,000 games. So what? I coached 1,000 games in 5 years. It's just different.
You coached high school pretty much right out of college. You talked about your time at Goldsboro, then on over to Durham. You spend time at East Carolina as a head coach. People maybe not remembering that before you go to Virginia as an assistant and then eventually circle back to Wake in South Carolina. What from those early days did you discover, Coach, that molded and shaped you for the later on experiences that folks maybe know a little more about your life?
If you will, allow me to go back to my Durham years.
Absolutely.
Those were important years for me. Durham at that time was as good an academic school as it was in the state of North Carolina. It also was as good a basketball and football school as there was in the state of North Carolina. I mean, we were really good. It was really a growing process, but it was an important time. Then if you fast forward, I did end up at East Carolina in my first head coaching position. I quickly learned that East Carolina was having problems winning because A, they weren't in the league, and B, they're operating in the shadow of the ACC. And that was 2 things that we began to attack, hard things, because anytime there's a great player in the east of Raleigh, it was hard to get them. The other part, we were not in a league, and I thought that was going to be one of the main things that I needed to do was to help get in a league. And as it turned out, we were able to help start a league. The Colonial was the league, and it had like Wilmington, East Carolina, William and Mary, Old Dominion, schools like that. At least I felt that my biggest contribution was not winning games. We won some games, but maybe getting East Carolina in a league in which they could compete in. And I think anybody that you would talk to now and they look back on those days, I think they would say getting in a league was really the important thing that happened when Dave Odom was at East Carolina. It had been 30 years since Wake Forest had tasted that. And just to be able to do that, deliver that for the fans, deliver it for the players, it was just absolutely, I mean, it just amazing.
Coach, as we dive into those developmental days and your playing days, some connections with Pistol Pete, a number of others. Your memories of that time period, what are they that stand out in your mind?
Well, those go back to during my days. He was a student at Raleigh-Broughton High School, just 20 miles away. And we actually played them every year twice, and then sometimes in the playoffs. And back in those days, you didn't hate the ones that you're playing against. You embraced them, and you got to know them by name. I mean, that league that I was in, the old Cap 8, they call it, Capital 8 Conference. It was a tremendous athletic league. Basketball alone, we had, I don't know how many ACC, as it turned out, ACC players. We had Buck Williams at Rocky Mount as well, and he goes to Maryland. North Carolina. Phil Ford goes to North Carolina. We had John Lucas, and then we had this guy, skinny white guy with loose socks that came over, and he played in my gym all the time, Pistol Pete Maravich. And everybody just kind of helped each other in the summertime get better. We'd have clinics, and it'd all come together. And I really got to know Pete. He loved the game of basketball. He had a good father. His father was a coach. And but, you know, I would try to, you know, help him where I could. And
well, how much of their game rubbed off on Dave Odom, and how much of Dave Odom's game rubbed off on them? That's a big question.
Yeah, I didn't try to do things that he did. I can tell you that. Maybe he modeled some things after me, like, don't turn the ball over, Pete. I mean, I didn't go for that. I was pretty good at not turning the ball over. I didn't dribble between my legs. I didn't shoot hook shots from half court. I didn't do those kind of things. He did, though, and he could do it. Matter of fact, the best basketball game I think I've ever seen, still to this day, for a high school player, was in the North Carolina All-Star game in the summertime. And Pete was a senior that happened to be that year, and he scored 44 points that night. Boy, he was some kind of good. And he loved the game. You never could get enough of it. And I enjoyed watching him. I'm happy to say he was a good friend of mine. I was a good friend of his. But we also had, you know, even to this day, Phil Ford, Buck Williams, John Lucas, all of those guys, we're close friends even today. And I had a couple, 2 or 3, that ended up playing at Virginia Tech and in the ACC as well.
Let's go ahead now and fast forward to your highlight moments at Wake. You have to immediately think about 1995, 1996. In 95, you take North Carolina to overtime with about 4 seconds left, the 10-footer, Randolph Childress. You're able to win the championship against the Tar Heels. You come back the next year, and with Tim Duncan headlining and the MVP of the tournament, you take down Bobby Crimmon's Georgia Tech squad for back-to-back ACC championships. Take us inside those days, Coach.
Well, you know, I remember, people ask me what I told those teams. I remember saying to both of them that this championship, and I had the championship trophy in my hand, this championship is not ours unto ourselves. In other words, we don't get it and wrap it up and take it home. No. This championship should be shared with all the Wake Forest people who are there now, but also those who came before us. 1962 was the last time they had won an ACC championship. Man, there were some great players on that team. I mean, Lynn Chappell, Billy Packer, I mean, Jerry Steele, Lefty Davis. I mean, there were Allie Hart. There were some great players on that team. And they not only won the ACC championship, they went to the Final Four. Then if you fast forward, we win. It was in Greensboro. We win an overtime game. Randolph Childress, as everybody knows, had a spectacular tournament. Set an ACC record for scoring, 107 points in 3 games. I mean, it's a record that may never be broken, who knows. We played Duke in the first game. We got off to a horrendous start. And Duke is up on us, I don't know, 15, 18 points early. And I kept waiting for our team to turn itself around. It didn't happen. And so I called a timeout. And the things I said to them, I could probably be arrested for today or I'd lose my day. I'd lose my job for sure today. And during the second part of that long time out, I heard a voice in the back of the huddle say, "Coach, that's enough. I don't want to hear any more. Give them to me. I'll take care of it." Voice was ran off Childress. He ends up scoring and we beat Duke, came back and beat him. We beat Duke in the first round. He gets like 37, and then we play Virginia, he gets 35, and then we play North Carolina, and he gets, I don't know, 36, 37, whatever the total is for 107. We won the tournament, and it was just a glorious time for Wake Forest. It really was.
How gratifying was it to win that in Greensboro against Dean Smith's North Carolina Tar Heels? But for it to happen in Greensboro, just down the road from campus, had to be special.
Well, it was, and Dean Smith, a great coach, and I respect him even to today. I do, but really, it wasn't beating him that was gratifying. It was winning the tournament for. It had been, what is that, 62 to 92? That's 30 years. It had been 30 years since Wake Forest had tasted that, and just to be able to do that, deliver that for the fans, deliver it for the players. It was just absolutely, it just amazing. I remember the first minute or two after the game was over. Childress hits the shot, Stackhouse misses the shot, we won the game. And I walked in the middle of the court, and I remember turning and looking at the top row of the Greensboro Coliseum. I was looking for the image of my mother. It wasn't my mother. She was passed away. She'd actually passed away earlier that year, but she always came to every game, and that was kind of for her. It was kind of for her.
You think about a miracle shot. Many people would say she was there in that overtime contest.
At the very least, she probably guarded Stackhouse on that last play.
There you go. Coach, 1 year later, a 1-point victory, back-to-back ACC championships as you take down the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. And how about the tournament Tim Duncan had that go round?
Well, in all honesty, I thought going into that tournament we had the best team in the country. I really felt that. I didn't say it, but I felt it. There was nobody better than we were. Nobody. We proved it, I think, during the regular season, and here we are in the tournament, and we're getting ready to play again. We had the best team in the country going into that tournament. A friend, a coaching friend, would do anything in the world for you. He's the same guy when he wins as when he loses. Same guy.
Let's do a little ACC word association. First thing comes to mind when you hear these names. Bobby Crimmins.
A friend, a coaching friend, would do anything in the world for you. He's the same guy when he wins as when he loses. Same guy. He's just who he is.
Dean Smith.
A great teacher. He taught those of us who were not Tar Heels. He taught me to be ready for everything, something different every game. I can remember 2 or 3 times where I'm sitting next to my assistant, Ernie Nestor, and something happened in the game that I hadn't told my team about. And I'd look at him, he'd look at me, and we'd say, there it is. That's the thing we got to be ready for. And at halftime, we'd draw that up and get ready for it. But he always had something different.
Jim Valvano.
Jim Valvano, probably the most misunderstood coach in the league. He was really, really good. From an advancement standpoint, he's probably the one guy you don't want to play. You don't want to get into a last-second game with him. If it's during the middle of the game and during the course of just playing a normal game, fine. You can beat him. But he gets down in the cracks. You don't want to mess with him.
How about Gary Williams?
Probably one of the most misunderstood and underappreciated coaches to ever coach in the ACC. He had a very, very good feel for post play and how to get the ball into his postmen, and his players were always tough. But the thing that made Gary who he was, after the game was over, the game was over. He didn't hold grudges or anything like that. Matter of fact, one time we beat him. Duncan was here, and we beat him in Cole Fieldhouse, and said, "Help me." I just did my post-game interview, and I went out on the court to see my wife and all, and I saw him in the upper reaches of Cole Fieldhouse, and he had his friend with him, and they were walking out like they were going out. And I said, "Gary, where you going? I wanted to talk to you." He said, "See you later. I'm going to the beach." I mean, that's just the way he was.
There you go.
It was over.
In that vein, Lefty.
Lefty. Unlike Gary, he did hold grudges, but he let him go. I talk to Lefty probably once a month now. He was really good. One of the great recruiters in all of ACC basketball.
Mike Krzyzewski has to be mentioned as well. What about Mike?
Really the best handler of players and coaches, staff. He put things together probably better than anybody. He knew what needed to be done to get them ready to be at their very best each and every night. He handled his coaches very well as well. A lot of respect for Mike Krzyzewski.
Let's talk players a little bit. What is it in the makeup of guys like Randolph Childress, Tim Duncan? Describe those individuals to us, both what separates them as individuals, but also what they share in common that drives them to be winners, not only in basketball, but also in life.
I don't know if we taught them that here at Wake Forest, or they just had it coming in. But guys like that, guys like Grant Hill, guys like Mark Scott, guys like the great players. The one thing I think they all had in common, or have in common, and I think that's even true today, Michael Jordan, is they have a sense of fearlessness. They're not afraid. They're not afraid to win, and they're not afraid to lose. They understand that both winning and losing carries extra responsibility with it. They're not afraid of that. When you look at great players play, and I think that's true in football, it's true in baseball. Football, Brady's not afraid to win, not afraid to lose. Baseball, the great ones there, Joe DiMaggio, Babe Ruth, guys like that, not afraid to win and not afraid to lose. I think that's the biggest trait that the winners have, is they are extremely confident in their own ability and their teammates, and they're not afraid to lay it out there, win or lose.
You make the move from Wake Forest, eventually to Columbia, South Carolina. You spend some time with the Gamecocks.
Yeah. Great years at Columbia, really.
You had the distinction of being honored as both the ACC on multiple occasions and SEC Coach of the Year. That's a rarity. You saw both leagues in some formative moments. How do you compare and contrast the ACC and the SEC from your days in both?
When I was coaching the ACC, it started off 9 coaches, 8 coaches and then 9 quickly. We were all a body of one. When Gary Williams went to the beach, everybody knew it. When Mike Krzyzewski went to Saratoga to see the races, everybody knew it. Basketball at that time was much more important to the league, whereas in the SEC, sometimes they made you feel like that was something you did till spring football started again. It's not like that now. I mean, there's really good teams in the SEC. And maybe that was the process we went through to get to where it is today.
You helped lay that foundation, no doubt about it.
People ask me about the difference in the 2 leagues, and I would go through whatever I wanted to say, and they'd say, how about the coaches? My gosh, they were great coaches. So from that standpoint, the SEC didn't take any backseat at all.
Nolan Richardson won the national championship that year. You won that overtime game against North Carolina in the ACC along those runs. So
if we'd ever got to his tail, he'd have never won that one.
Those are some great years. You ended up securing a handful of NIT championships at South Carolina. You won a couple of those down there, 3 total, and then on top of that, an NCAA appearances. What are your main memories from your time in Columbia and in the SEC?
Well, the Columbia thing was really good. I went there at a great time because they were just opening a Colonial Center, and the support that we had in Columbia, it was second to none. They loved the Gamecocks. They really did. And we were able to, my second year, I think it was, we ended up going to NIT and won that. And we did win. We won 2 down there. So it was a fun time.
How gratifying is it to see your son follow in your coaching footsteps?
I want him to be the best he can be and have nothing to do with me as a coach. I want him to be Ryan. I do. And I think he understands that.
Coach, as you look back across it, we've talked about your high school playing days, we've talked about your collegiate playing days, all the different stops along the way in your coaching journey. If you have to kind of look back across all of that and come up with a life philosophy or maybe a mantra that has driven you or a set of values that have been central to you along the way, what would you put your finger on if you shared with someone, here's kind of the Dave Odom approach to living?
I would go back to my youth. My mother, I've mentioned her already, and my dad was not an avid fan, but he came when he could. He worked, and but you know, the support that I got in my home, you know, and the way they came to games and they wanted me to do things, they wanted me to be successful was important. Coaches were very influential in my life. Teachers were very influential in my life. I can tell you without any fear of contradiction, I never had a bad coach. Today, everybody wants to blame the coach. You know, I didn't have a good career, but I had a bad coach. You know, I was blessed. I never had a bad coach. I just could never thank those people who stood by me in difficult times, you know, and helped me become all that I was able to become. Whatever that was, I don't know what it was, but whatever it was, I know I couldn't have done it without them.
You talk about the support of your family and creating that foundation for your life. You're in a season of life now where you've had an opportunity to do that. How gratifying is it to see your son follow in your coaching footsteps?
I want him to be the best he can be and have nothing to do with me as a coach. I want him to be Ryan. I do. And I think he understands that. We talk often, but he asks me about my opinion, I give it to him, and then I get out of the way and let him make it. He's a really good coach. The thing about Ryan, though, is that he got his interest from me in basketball, but he got his personality from his mother. Thank goodness, because she is always under control. And when you see him on the sideline and things are going haywire, he stands and he takes it in and he coaches the game as it needs to be coached at the time. I'm so proud of him on that. Me, I'd go crazy, get a technical, whatever. Actually, I didn't get technicals. He actually got kicked out of the game. I didn't do that.
But again, we saw those long fingers pressed down on that hardwood floor, and there was so much rolling through that mind at times.
Yeah, I was there, and I rarely went to my seat. He goes to his seat all the time, and I was able to stay in the game. I wanted to be a part of the game as referees went up and down. I needed to be in position to talk to them, and I always had a good relationship with referees. And basketball to me was what you lived for after I got so totally entrenched in the game.
And Ryan's already given the game of basketball a moment that nobody will ever forget. The only 16 over a 1 as he took down a team very close to your heart. You spent some time at Virginia. That's a moment that nobody will ever forget. Walk us through
Nobody will ever see it again.
Nobody maybe see it again. But what was that like as a father?
It was a first. That's why I say they'll never see it again. And I told Ryan, I said, you know, the Odom family is seated in the history of UVA basketball forever and ever and ever, because there was also another first, and that was the Chaminade upset of the University of Virginia back in 1982. I was an assistant on that team and in that game, and you know, we were clearly the best team in the nation that year at that time, and I won't go into all the details, but Chaminade beat us. They deserved it that night, and that was the first time that a non-Division I team had ever beaten a Division I team, and we were number one team in the country that year. And as a matter of fact, we lose the game the night before. We go to the airport the next day, and I'm sitting next to Terry Holland in the waiting room, and here comes the media. And I gave him one of those, hey, don't come over here right now. And I got up and I went over and I said, what do you guys want? They said, we want to interview Coach Holland. I said, just a minute. I go over, I said, Terry, these guys want to interview you about the game last night. He said, I'm not going. I said, why? He said, because when the results of last night's game get back to the East Coast, it'll be so absurd nobody will believe it. So there's no reason for me to waste my time. And he didn't. He didn't go over and do it. He said, you go over and talk to him.
That's classic. You've experienced the emotions of all that from both sides. You experienced it as a father, as the 16 defeated the one. You experienced it, as you just said, on the team, having worked so hard all year to put yourself on that footing and be the one. Describe what it is about those moments in basketball, Coach, that draws us to it so.
You only have the moment to live with. Ryan's, that day that he engineered that upset in Charlotte. Now, that's two best friends that went to college together, Griff Aldridge and Ryan Odom. They're on the same staff. Griff's his assistant. You guys okay? Yeah, we're good. We're good, Dad. We're good. We're okay. Don't worry about it. We're okay. And I said, well, and I mean, I'm more nervous than they are for sure, and I no doubt. I said, well, we'll be with you. Don't worry about it. We're with you. And I hear Ryan say to Griff, come on, buddy, we can do this. Whoa. Tears came to my eyes when he said that. We can do this. Now, you can't do it. You're 16. They're 1. They're just about undefeated. You've lost 5 games or 6 games, whatever it was. No, you can't. I didn't tell him that, but I'm thinking, no, you can't do it. What do you? I really became a believer at the 8-minute mark of the second half. Arkell, one of his big, strong players, hit a jump shot off the break, just inside of 3 for a 2. He gave him a 19 or 20-point lead. And I'm saying, I told my wife, I said, they're going to win this game. They're going to win it. They're going to win the darn game. And I go back to what he said, we can do this. And he believed it, and he did.
As a husband, as a father, in the spotlight, what have you learned that you can pass along to others?
You got to do it day by day, because it takes each day to build it, and you just put another brick on top of it, and here you go. And Lynn and I have been blessed. We got 2 great sons, and each one of them does their own thing, but they're great friends as well. And so we don't have that problem. And each of them look after the other, and it truly is a family affair. But you do it day by day, and then hope that at the 365th day of that particular year, you can put another brick on it.
Part of that day by day for you has been investing in others. You've done camps along the way, countless camps along the way. You're still involved in giving young men an opportunity through the Maui Invitational on a yearly basis. As you've invested your life in others, What have been the most rewarding things you've been a part of, Coach?
Well, the camps you mentioned, five-star basketball camp, to me was, boy, I mean, that was something I could never, ever thank Howard Garfinkel and Will Klein enough for getting me down there. My last camp, I mean, the camps were held in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and West Virginia. And my last camp was at Robert Morris College. And we had 400 kids that week. And I was the head coach. So and it was a teaching camp, one of the type camps that you don't see today. I don't know what made me do it, but I counted each week as we went. And here I'd spent over a year of my life at that basketball camp, teaching kids, making sure that they got the best of the best. I'll never forget that. I mean, that was an unbelievable, and I can't tell you where I go now, see that orange shirt, five-star basketball camp on it, and I say to them, when were you there? Oh, Coach Odom, that's you. Yeah, I was there in and they'll give me one of those 1978s or whatever it was. I did it all the way through the 90s. It was incredible.
Whether it was one of your four-year players, one of your coaching colleagues, one that just attended a week of camp, all the players you've known over the years and those coming in future generations, what do you want most for those in your life?
I want those kids to return to teaching the game, teaching the skills of basketball. Don't just play the game, but teach the game, learn the game. That's what I do with my coaches whenever I was coaching. People ask me about Tim Duncan and what's special about him. The thing about Tim Duncan is that he played the game with a respect for substance over style. He was stylish, but he valued substance more than style. Just get the game won. That's what he wanted. And I think from my standpoint, I wanted the game to be taught. When you say pick and roll, I wanted the players to come out of that camp to know what it was, know what it is. And I think that's lost today, and I would hope that they could get back to teaching the game. It'll be a better game, because the athletes today are probably better. They just don't know the game like they did.
Substance over style, that's a pretty good lesson, not only for basketball, but also for life.
For life.
You've been so gracious with your time. Thank you so much for it. We'll finish with this one, Coach. There's a banner that hangs in the rafters above the floor at Lawrence Joel Veterans Memorial Coliseum, which bears your name. When folks, generations to come, those who knew you in this generation, those who may not in generations to come, when they look up at that banner and they see the name Coach Dave Odom, what do you want them to remember about Coach Dave Odom?
We came to work every day, and we coached to help our kids be the best they can be. We lived to make the university proud, and somewhere along the way, maybe they would say, the man could coach.
It's been a pleasure to know you. It's been a pleasure to watch you.
Thank you.
And a pleasure to call you friend. Thank you, Coach. I'd love for you to walk me around to some of this memorabilia and just talk through it. This picture means this to me. This trophy means that to me.
Let's do it. This is a special and important picture. This was Rodney Rogers, and anytime I give a talk, I always try to, they talk about the history of Wake Forest basketball. I always try to get, Rodney was the most important recruit I ever got here at Wake Forest. People say, more than Duncan, more than Childress? He was, because he was our first All-America, high school All-America. He came from Hillside, in Durham. The thing about it, he opened the door to these other recruits to come. Randolph Childers, for instance, committed right behind him. And I said, Randolph, why did you decide on Wake Forest? He said, Coach, when you got Rodney, I knew you were serious about winning championships. Wow. And I don't want to go anywhere that's not serious about winning championships. So he opened the door to Childers to come. He opened the door to Duncan. And he was an All-American for 3 years here. And of course, we know that the tragic accident he had. And
sure. But this is where it started.
This is where it started.
I've heard you called a lot of things, but never Chief Justice or Supreme Court Justice down here. How about that?
Yeah, that was the first team picture that we took in second one, I think, in 1990. Childers and Derek McQueen and Chris King and Anthony Tucker. These were the guys that were here when I got here. I'm telling you, they were really super good. This group is. I mean, it was a really good team. We just needed to teach them how to win. We did after that 1 year. This is our 96 team, championship team there. Let's see, some of these pictures here. This was my 2 boys and my wife, Lynn, and our whole family here. And let's see here, what we got. Oh, this is the president of UMBC right here, hired Ryan, and he was a great tutor, a great mentor there. Let's see. There's Coach Steele up there. He was my college basketball coach. And right behind it is the 5-star owners of the camp up there. Howard Garfinkel on the right, Will Klein on the left, and I'm in the middle. It's a special picture for me because this is my oldest son, Lane, and he was an assistant in Alabama. And just below it is Ryan. And Ryan, we were at the University of Virginia at that time, and he would come over to University Hall after school, and each day he would play games right on University Hall court. So when you think about his team, UMBC, beating UVA, he learned the game on the court that UVA played on. It's an incredible thing.
That is.
I want to show, this is Ryan in his Hampton-Sydney uniform at Hampton-Sydney, and this is my oldest son, Lane, at Alabama. So that was, I like that because I got both boys right there. And this is a large-size picture of that spectacular shot that Randolph hit with Grant Hill closing on him, and Charlie Harrison, his running mate at guard right there. But actually, Hill was coming down and Randolph is going up, and he hits a shot. Over in the corner is a young lady named Emily Giffen, who is a world-renowned author today, writes books. She was our manager for 4 years, and she writes books now, lives in Atlanta, and she just spectacular, and she was right there just as nervous as she could be. I'm sure of that.
You got several Tim Duncan mementos here on
this one right here. This is his patented jump hook. Probably none better in the history of college basketball than that. And that was the year that we beat Duke. And there's a famous Tony Rutland who tore his knee up and cost us the national championship. I tell Tony every time I see him, I'll never forgive you for that, pal. But that's pretty special there. They gave me a day, and this was the Coach of the Year deal in one of those years, 89, that was my first one. I do want to show you in here, that was the trip that UVA was on. We went to Japan and played there, and then came back to Hawaii and lost to Chaminade. But that was that trip right there, which is, I think it's pretty important but that was Ralph Sampson there. And here's my wife did that. She kind of a collage of rings that we won, championships that we won, NIT, some of it, South Carolina, that kind of thing. There is one,
University Hall, UVA.
yeah, that's a piece of wood out of the floor when they tore that down. And this is the year we went to the Final Four with Odom Polynice and Tom Sheehy, and that was at Virginia. And here's something that's I think fairly interesting here. This is a radio. Mark Freidinger was the color guy.
Okay.
And this was his worksheet that day. And so as he went through and he marked, who's scoring and who's rebounding and who's assist. And that was the first ACC championship game. And he gave that to me the next day. And so we had it framed. I thought it was pretty.
That's nice.
Pretty neat. That's what was happening.
As it happened.
Yeah.
You got another case of items here.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Now, I told you about baseball. I go to baseball games. I like baseball. This is my brother-in-law, Lynn's brother, and Ryan when he was just a baby. Ryan, there's these clocks up there, clocks from the NCAA tournament, NIT tournament.
Now, I didn't ask you this when we were sitting down earlier, but what were your toughest places from a coaching standpoint?
I always enjoyed the road. I didn't mind that. I mean, if you'd asked me which one's my favorite place to go,
Well, give me that one.
probably Reynolds Coliseum in North Carolina State, because I grew up with that Coliseum. I was trying to think which one I dreaded the most.
Or which was the toughest? Which would you say was the toughest environment in which to play?
Whoever had the best team. It was hard to beat those teams, but I don't know that there was one I dreaded. I don't really think there was.
Just enjoyed the moment.
Yeah, being able to go. When I retired, this one came from Tennessee. Tennessee gave me that, University of Tennessee, but that day that I was there, they gave me that. And this, Billy Donovan gave me that at Florida. And then the chair in here, there you go. That was Kentucky people gave me that.
Now, you had a pretty good win over Kentucky during your time at South Carolina.
Yes, we did.
Stormed the floor when they were, I think, #1 in the country.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did. That is
Now, they might not like knowing you have that here now.
Well, I'm going to tell you why. My wife is a painter.
Okay.
She's an artiste.
Uh-huh.
And we got a granddaughter at North Carolina.
Sure.
Her birthday is Monday.
There you go. Here's the gift, huh?
And she painted Ramesses. And she's going to give that to my granddaughter on Monday at the birthday party.
How about that? I see you got a San Antonio Spur sitting here.
Yeah.
With those kind of connections, why not?
Let me show you in here. This was the night before his junior year, and we were starting practice that day. And it was on the quad. These are some of my Hall of Fame stuff. I didn't do any of this. My wife did it all. She was intent on having it, so we did it. And this was Childress' shot, the shot that beat North Carolina. Now, I have put the Wake Forest guys that ended up pros up here. Rodney, Tim, Randolph, Josh, and I went over to Greece and did a coaching clinic over there, and I took Lynn with me. While we were over there, we went to the Acropolis, and that's what that is. And those are some of the Hall of Fame stuff that I've gotten. Up there's the different Hall of Fames. Yeah, this is the Wake Forest Hall of Fame, the South Carolina State Hall of Fame, the that's my high school one right there.
Goldsboro, yeah.
Yeah, and then over here is the North Carolina High School Hall of Fame, and this one is the Guilford College Hall of Fame. And if you wanted to, I don't know where you can get it or not, but my college buddies there.
College buddies.
Yeah, my mother and my bride, right there. I do want to show you this because I know you don't know what this is. This this is
Hootie and the Blowfish.
the
Your time at Carolina.
yeah, they when I was there, I had a suite, and 2 or 3 times a year, these guys would call me and say, I want to go to the game. I'd give them a suite, and they all signed it. Pretty neat.
That is. Now, do you play?
No.
Just a great memento.
Yeah, just a great memento.
You're a big music fan, though.
Yeah, I am, and I like country music as well. Now, that's my South Carolina guys that went to the pros right there. And the one up at the top, Michael Boynton, is the head coach at Oklahoma State now. So, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. These are some of my Wake Forest ones that went to NBA, and as well as those up there.
And you have Ralph Sampson here in the middle, too.
Yeah.
From your time at Virginia.
Yeah. I wanted to show you one. That picture right there was I said never had a day like this again. That was the next year when we beat them. Rodney, that was the next year. We beat Duke that day after losing to them by 30-something the year before. I said, it'll never happen to us again, ever. Wow. And it didn't.
This is where the work is still done to this day on the Maui and on so many other things. And I know you just flew back in from being out there helping Ryan out a little bit, so you're still as active as ever in the sport of basketball. Yeah, and I think that's important that I stay that way. I want to. Too many things I hadn't done yet I want to do. I think that's a good one to end on, Coach. There you go.
This was the night before his junior year, and we were starting practice that day. Yeah, this is the Wake Forest Hall of Fame, the South Carolina State Hall of Fame. That was the next year when we beat them, Rodney. That was the next year. We beat Duke that day. This was Childers' shot, the shot that beat North Carolina.